It's with great sadness that we have a need to discuss the absolute devastation that's going on with the recent fires in Southern California. So many people affected, so many people displaced right now. Lots of questions going on out there. We're getting calls from all across the country. So I wanted to reach out and get, of course, Dave D'Souza, our amazing lender from Glendale, California on. And we also want to get Zach Schneiderman with Schneiderman Insurance right there in the heart of this debacle, so we could make and produce some clarification for everybody out there with what's going on with this devastation with the fires going on right now in Southern California. So we have Dave on. Dave, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Cash. Nice to be here with you both. And of course, it'd be nice to be here under slightly different circumstances, but our hearts and thoughts and prayers are with all of our people. And we wish you all the very best. Thank you for your kind words.
Absolutely. We are definitely all praying, and there are so many people here to help everybody out there in Southern California right now. You are not alone in this. There are many, many people. I'm licensed in the state of Idaho with real estate and also in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I'll tell you, we've got fire trucks coming down from both states right now. Everybody is helping out. So we wanted to also reach out to Zach Schneiderman with Schneiderman Insurance to get him in on here so we could talk about this. He's going to join us any minute now.
Yeah,
but why don't we start in the meantime?
He's actually trying to log on right now.
He's trying to log on right now. In the meantime, Dave, if you want to, before Zach gets on here, because this is really important tonight. He's going to give us some good clarification on a lot of these things that are going on out there and what people should be doing right now. If you're in Southern California going through these fires, what can you be doing right now and keeping an eye out for? And who do you reach out to? We're going to provide some phone numbers for you as well and some different links for you that can definitely help save some time. Anyways, until Zach joins us, Dave, do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on with interest rates in the market right now? Kind of give us a little briefing.
I'll give you a very quick rundown on it. Thank you, sir.
Fantastic.
So very quickly, this was a relatively calm week right up until today. Interest rates ended the week about 0.125 or 1/8% worse than the prior week. And the stock market lost about 2% this week compared to the prior week. Here are some of the things that affected both those markets. New job openings came in strong earlier in the week. Not particularly good for interest rates. Good for the job market, but not particularly good for interest rates. ISM manufacturing services came in higher than expected. That was also something that was not particularly good for interest rates. Again, good for manufacturing, good for the Institute of Service and Manufacturing, not particularly good for interest rates. The big blow came this morning. The December jobs report came in much, much stronger than expected. They were expecting 155,000 new jobs for the month of December. Came in at 255,000 more jobs. Now, a lot of that could have been due to some of the layoffs and strikes that were in November that affected the job market. But nonetheless, Wall Street and interest rates, the bond market, both reacted negatively to that. So interest rates slightly worse, stock market down about 2%. That's your wrap up for last week. And here we have Zach Schneiderman joining us now.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome aboard, Zach. Let's see if we have some audio on Zach, our producer.
Zach, can you hear us?
Check in with Zach. Zach is somebody we definitely want to talk to this evening and hear some of the things he's got to share with us out there.
Zach, I can see you and I can see you speaking, but I don't think we can hear you. Yeah. Amy, can you hear Zach?
Yeah, I thought I'd have a little humor and a tough day.
Oh, there it is. Now we've got it. Yep, we've got you.
Zach, welcome aboard, man.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're super excited to have you on board this evening, man. Thank you. I know it was very difficult for you to get here, and you're super, super swamped busy helping people out with these fires right now. All kinds of things going on. I don't even know where to start and what's going on in your world. I could just imagine right now, but glad that you took some time to get on here. I know there's a lot of people out there with some questions and some clarification or maybe some direction that you could share this evening would be absolutely amazing. What could you share with us, Zach?
Yeah, so obviously every fire has its own circumstances. So there are fires that are coming, from arson. There are others to where, it could just be a natural element from the wind, and who knows if it was a dry lightning strike. There's others where there's other investigations from lawyers and the government trying to figure out what happened. Or I know there's concerns over whether power lines were of an issue or if there was an issue with the fire hydrants in Palisades, which is a big concern. I don't have any confirmation or anything. It's all speculation that's going around right now, but there's definitely questions. And
Right.
I know some lawyers who are literally in the middle of filing lawsuits to see if they can help clients who are devastated through these fires, but the insurance only covers so much in some of these areas or some things. And sometimes those cases, if there's an at-fault party, can go beyond what your insurance covers and can supplement in other ways. So that's what somebody's doing. I know some lawyers who specialize in this, and they're starting, whether they call it a mass tort or a class action lawsuit. I'm not a lawyer, but I can introduce folks to the gentlemen who are doing these.
Okay, that's good to know, Zach. And we'll definitely make sure we provide your information where people can reach out to you and contact you with any of those kind of questions or follow-up. So attorneys, would they be suing the state, going after the California Fair Plan, or going after the actual insurance carriers or the state?
On those kind of matters, my understanding is that your insurance is going to do what it's supposed to do. The Fair Plan, they don't create the fire. Their job is to, make you whole or at least up to the limits that you purchased your coverage and they insured you for. And that's what these insurance companies are doing. So nobody has come out and said there's any problems with the insurance companies. They're all really, these are when insurance companies really step up. I mean, I work very hard to make sure we pick great places for our customers and our clients to be represented. And the carriers I represent, I'm proud to represent them, especially my major carriers. They really can step up in these moments and shine. These catastrophes aren't, nobody asked for them, and people are devastated. And usually the adjusters that are getting involved, they're pooling them. I mean, the tough thing is their resources are limited. When you have this much going on, and normally one big catastrophic fire is one thing, but when you have many catastrophic fires happening at the same time, the resources that we normally would have to pool just for one of these fires is a lot. And we'd pull people in from out of state to come in and support the cleanup and the adjusting efforts. But instead, now we have multiples, and we really have to pull the resources. And you're going to see a lot of insurance companies taxed to their limits.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I understand the California Fair Plan might be a little over encumbered at this point. Does that sound about right to you?
I've heard things like that on the news. I don't know if their finances really are or aren't, and there's structure to how the Fair Plan actually exists and how they exist and what supports them financially. So we may see things tested and see how they really work. But I think you're probably pushing the California Fair Plan beyond to the limits of what it's ever had to do in the past.
Gotcha. Zach, this is Dave. Just in the short bit of time that it's come from clients that I have with Cash and other clients, the questions seem to fall in two sort of general broader categories. One of them would be for people that have been or have had homes that have been affected by the devastation. What sort of and I know that varies case to case, but what sort of a broader spectrum can they expect as far as, are there situations where there's going to be coverage and situations where there may not be coverage? And then the second part to the question would be for those just who are not necessarily affected, but sort of, and I know this may be partly speculative looking down the line, what's your anticipation of what the insurance industry and how it relates to the mortgage and real estate industry can expect in the months and maybe years to come?
Yeah, good questions, Dave.
So I think everything at this point is speculation, right? I can give you an idea of how insurance claims go and what the expectations are, but where we're going to go in the future could be, I think we were heading in good places. We were starting to see some carriers say, hey, I saw some carriers saying, hey, we're coming back in the market. We're opening products that were closed. Other carriers had made long-term decisions that they were staying out longer or weren't ready to come back in. I don't know if this is going to impact that. What I do know is it seems like right now there are still carriers that are in the market. Admitted carriers take longer to adjust. It's not like they can go change the rates tomorrow. So if they want to increase premiums down the road, they're going to have to file those with the Department of Insurance and get approvals to do that. Pulling out of the market, we could see carriers. I'm concerned that we may see more carriers withdraw, but again, that's speculation.
And you mean withdraw from the Southern California or the California market?
Yeah, I mean, carriers can't, now there's an order where carriers can't just cancel a policy for the next year or something like that. I don't know what happens if a carrier decides just to flat out leave California and how the regulations impact that. That's something that the Department of Insurance would have to guide them. And I don't want people to think that can happen because
So people that have insurance now, clients of ours that have policies that are paying their premiums, obviously, should there be a concern that they have that their policies may be canceled, or are you saying that it's fairly likely that they won't?
So depending on where your home is located. So if you're in an area that was impacted by the fire, okay, by one of these fires, or you're in a neighboring zip code, then there's protective orders that the insurance commissioner has put in place and enacted that will protect people from having that happen in the next, say, year. But after that, those things typically get lifted. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to get a rate increase for whatever the going rates are. So there's still a lot of rate changing in the system where insurance companies have filed for rate, gotten it approved, but maybe your renewal hasn't come up yet. And so that rate impact is still coming through the system, and that's not going to change as far as I know.
Gotcha. Zach, could you do us a favor and share with us what you're experiencing right now, just for our listeners out there that might be looking for some clarification or answers on what they might best be able to do right now at this moment. But maybe share with us what you're experiencing. You're getting a lot of calls, people like they're displaced. Where do we go? What do we do? Besides just where do we file the claims, but what are you experiencing right now?
So, I've got quite a few, probably the most total losses I've ever had, let alone the claims where someone's, roof got damaged or the wind damaged something or their car was lost in the fire or all these other things that could have happened, right? But they're not getting answers as quickly as they'd like. And that's because the resources are really pulled thin. And so as an agent, we're trying to hold people's hands that the adjusters might not have gotten to. We're fielding more phone calls. We're trying to support as many people as possible. And like me, I know a lot of other agents, we're trying to get word out by things like this podcast or other sources to make sure people understand, look, whether you're my client or you're not my client, I want to help people because I signed up long ago to be an insurance agent. Part of being an insurance agent is we sell a piece of paper and a promise. And when that time comes, we need to be able to live up to the promises we made. And I don't want to just be the person who gives you a policy and then when something happens, we're not answering those calls. And I have clients who have dear friends or family members that are impacted. And I just say, just have them call me. I don't care if I'm their agent or not. They're in the place, and this is what my industry needs to do right now. I want to honor what my industry should look like and how we want to take care of people. A lot of us are going to volunteer at some of the shelters that are in place and try and support and answer things. Farmers Insurance is gone, and they typically set up mobile claims units on site at some of these shelters and have people who can literally put advanced checks while the rest of the adjusting is happening. They're going out there and they're writing checks to give people some money to go pay for their temporary living expenses at a hotel, an Airbnb, or give them money to buy clothing or food. Because look, if you're not in your house cooking your dinner every night, most of us don't eat out every night. And so we're used to the budget of cooking food at home for our family, which is a lot cheaper. And when you don't have a kitchen to utilize, where are you getting your breakfast? Where are you getting your coffee?
That's right.
You're paying extra money. So, and that's what we have to focus on is where are people going to be staying? They're displaced. We have people not only, we have the elderly that may need special living circumstances for them where they were convenienced with their home. We have children who may be traumatized or wondering what happened to my bedroom or why is this happening to us? And some people had to run literally from the fire, being chased by flames or smoke and all these things. And so there's psychological repercussions to this. And there's a lot of great resources out there. And there are websites that the state has, the city has, let alone FEMA. The resources are still coming in. They're not fully engaged. They're putting their pieces in place. And typically on disasters of this size, like when you see in Florida or in New Orleans, when you see mass catastrophe, flooding, or hurricanes, you're going to see that kind of response here. And you're not going to see the presence of a lot of these places leave for a long time. But you are going to see that it's going to take a while to rebuild. If we can imagine what pulling permits with Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety is going to be like when all these people need to do it at once, and how that's going to go. And they try and expedite and find ways to do it. And sometimes there's ease, but we do have strong building codes out here for a reason. And it's not like we just want people to go waive building codes and say, well, go build anything you want and have other problems down the road. So things still need to be done right. But things people need to watch out for is there are a lot of predators out there right now. I mean, we're seeing people.
There we go.
We're seeing people being arrested for looting because nobody's home, and not every home was totally destroyed, but they're not there. They're under evacuation, and some bad players come in and start doing that. So it's important. If your home was damaged but it wasn't destroyed, you may want to contact a restoration company or a board up company that can board up the windows, make sure it's locked down so people can't get in there, because we don't want to see more losses. And you do have a duty on your policies to mitigate your damages and prevent further damage. So if we leave windows or holes in our ceilings or things out there and we don't seal them up by utilizing these services, and then it rains and now you have rainwater damage on what could have been a repairable unit, you may not have coverage in those instances because you failed to do the duties in your policy.
Ouch. Yeah.
But there are other people, hiring a public adjuster is something you have to make a conscious decision of. A lot of people show up at your doorstep when you're there and they listen for the on the scanners, and they just show up with a contract ready for you to sign, and you make an emotional decision. And I always say, a dear friend of mine said, rest in passion, move in reason. And I always tried to live by that saying is, let's not act out of emotion, because people love to take advantage, and con artists look for that emotion.
Absolutely.
There are great lawyers out there that can review the situation. If you have a total loss, is the public adjuster going to be more helpful, or are they just going to make money off of you? There are circumstances where these people are great tools in the right circumstances, and you need to make those decisions, but make sure you talk to the right people to figure that out.
Right. Even though you're under distress, incredibly, it's caveat emptor, right? Buyer beware. You've got to do your due diligence. You have to. And maybe you're going to do it a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently, make a decision faster, but you still have to do the due diligence and be aware that you are a buyer. You're stepping into a contract with a lot of these people, and they can do damage, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of those contracts are pretty rock solid, so that if they give you a 3-day window to cancel the contract, and if you don't do it within that time, it's pretty hard to get out of those. Same thing with signing contracts with, general contractors. You want to make sure you're reading those contracts. We very much get used to DocuSign these days, which is super easy to click, 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 and you signed a contract. And it literally sometimes breezes past 10 pages to get you to the next signature. Right. Are you reading that? Has someone reviewed that and made sure that you're not giving something away or being taken advantage of? These are very important things to remember at a time like this.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. And a couple of my clients that are sheriffs and LAPD have shared information too, that, if you are going to go back to a house that's, had been abandoned and you've taken off and there's a lot of damage, and there are looters about, and unfortunately, they're just people that want to take advantage of every situation like this. So going back to a house, maybe you want to pop back there at night, you want to grab something, you've got to heed caution. You've got to be careful. You don't want to run into the wrong kind of people late at night, in your house, right? Yeah. Have you heard anything about that?
Besides this, we've been having in the Los Angeles community, we've been having some pretty heavy burglary problems, and there's burglary rings and all sorts of other things going on. And these people, let's not assume that they're just showing up to steal and they don't have any weapons on them. Let's assume at all times we need to be careful. And so, sometimes the fire department or the police department is going to help people go through their community and have access, find out if they're present and going to help with that. I do know that people want to go back. They want to go see if they can find any remnants.
Absolutely.
They left in a hurry and left with very few things. And sometimes it's nice to find those little mementos. Here's a piece of metal from the house or a decorative element or a watch that didn't get destroyed and someone can help restore those things, or photographs. And so I know that people really have lost memories and lifetimes of memories. And some of these are homes that went through generations. If you look at the homes that were in the Pacific Palisades, those homes typically didn't sell. They stayed from grandparent to parent to child, and they were looking forward to handing those down to the next generation. And now those are gone, and you know how we redevelop this, but how we recover from losing all of these generational issues and beautiful properties is tough. And maybe finding that one little element that someone uses to then build their new memories around and make it a part of restoring their home or rebuilding their home and remembering that.
Exactly. Devastating in so many facets. Unbelievable. So if you are out there and you do want to pop back to your house real quick, please take somebody with you. Be very careful, hyper vigilant when you go back, and try to go back in the daytime if you can, really. So the average value in that Pacific Palisades area is $3.5 million, in case anybody was wondering. I've checked that out. $3.5 million is your average value in Pacific Palisades.
Just a side note, this is Dave jumping in here. I've already seen a couple of these in my inbox, in my email. Unfortunately, there are those that'll try to capitalize on people that want to help. They'll send you a link, they'll send you a website, say, hey, you want to help? Click on this website, enter your credit card, make a donation. Again, just as Zach and Cash are saying, be really careful to do your due diligence, whether you are a victim of this devastation or you are fortunate enough not to be and you want to help. Just make sure you do your due diligence to make sure that you're helping in the right place.
Yeah, I mean,
right, absolutely, well said, Dan.
You never know
I got
donating money is really a charity or it's just someone who's made it look like that. There are organizations that we're all very well aware of that come in these places. The Red Cross is a very well-known and established organization, but also know that sometimes people create links or websites that make them look like they're that organization.
Correct.
And you want to make sure that if you're getting an email, look at where it's coming from. Go to that entity's actual website, find it, and make sure you're doing it the right way. And I know there are friends and family with GoFundMe accounts, and random people start GoFundMe accounts that you don't know. Are those all honest GoFundMe accounts? So do you know the people?
One thing that you just said, Zach, which is incredibly important, before you look at the content of the email, look at the exact email address that it's coming from. If it's a sequence of letters and numbers, put it in your junk and delete it.
Or if there's typos.
If it's legitimate from the Red Cross, if it's legitimate from a legitimate organization, you will be able to tell that by looking at the email address I'm talking about the actual URL email address that it comes from. Right. If that URL is a sequence of numbers and letters, I guarantee you it's some sort of a scam.
And the same thing, if you see typos or grammatical errors, that's probably not the real organization sending these out. They don't send these emails out in a rush. Like, we got to get this out. They've got teams of PR folks. They review these things. They look very, very polished. And you got to be careful because some of those are just coming from the wrong places. And all of us.
And it takes seconds to cut and paste an emblem.
And
it takes seconds to cut and paste a picture of a Red Cross emblem.
Or a logo,
or anything like that.
Or to make something that looks just like it. And you got to remember, the three of us here, we all take standard like liability, we take continuing education that actually teaches us to look for this every year, because all of our companies or our businesses or licenses require us to take that training. The average person might not have that kind of knowledge and that training that we get annually.
Right. Absolutely. Zach, with all this displacement going on, are you getting involved with helping people find hotels? And I imagine hotels are it's hard to find vacancies. Yeah.
It's probably becoming tougher and tougher. Luckily, we're in a major area where we have conferences and Super Bowls and all sorts of other things that come in and out of Los Angeles all the time.
Right.
There's a lot of housing question is, how taxed is it? And we got to watch out for people who are gouging. There are some bad players out there who just jack up the rates, try and make it above and beyond. And there are other places that are literally trying to give. And I saw a story on the news about a husband and wife, I think they were lawyers, where they took out an entire block of rooms at a hotel to donate to people who don't have a place to go. And it touched me because that is such an unselfish move. But then there's the people who just say, oh no, we got to charge top dollar. There are people renting out rooms. I have hearing of families where 3 families are staying in a household to survive and opening their doors. Wonderful things to do. If you want to help, ask for donations and become a place that gathers clothing and furniture, because families, husbands, wives, children, they lost every bit of clothing other than what's on them. And it's going to be expensive to go pick all those pieces up. And I have a brother who did lose his house and had a major, major loss at one point. And those donations really went very far to get them through the toughest weeks and make sure they had clothes on their back. Or, if you know someone who lost their house, maybe start a meal train for them and get your group of friends together to say, hey, let's show up and hey, I'll cover this day and make you dinner. Have them come to your house.
Yeah, right.
Some people just,
it's time to reach out, time to put that hand out and invite people over and, maybe open your house if you can, but this is a time that people need, their brothers and their sisters to step in, right?
Yeah.
And I think I would offer to anybody watching this podcast, if either you or someone that you know or that you care for has been displaced and severely affected or from this devastation and needs help, reach out to us on this podcast. Cash has all kinds of ways that you can reach out to us and say, hey, here's what's going on. Can you help? Or how can we help? Or what suggestions do you have?
Right.
When I speak for myself, for Cash, for Zach, and all of our teams, we appreciate you. Our hearts go out to you, and we're here to support you and help you in any way that we possibly can.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. That's absolutely right. We're an incredible, between the 3 of us, with amazing resources. So just reach out. Anything we can do to help, and we're here to help in any way that we can. As Zach was mentioning earlier, he'd even help other people out with it. That's not going to sign up with him in insurance. It's just a matter of we're all helping out, because that's what we need to do in situations like this. So thanks for that, Dave. Absolutely, man. Zach, what should people be doing right now if they're out there, their house, they're having issues, they haven't, maybe they need to reach out to their insurance agents? Things like break out their phone and maybe start filming things, making some notes, things like that. Any suggestions that you could throw to people right now?
So if your home has been damaged or destroyed during this loss, or you have been we're under a mandatory evacuation and had to stay somewhere and it's out of pocket expenses, a lot of policies cover those mandatory evacuations. The voluntary ones are different, and typically, I can't speak for every carrier, but mandatory evacuations, you talk to your carrier, find out if there's coverage for that period of time. There's a lot of people still under the mandatory evacuation, and so there may be resources for you during that time, even though your home was not damaged, and that's something to consider. But if this has happened, this is not one of those times where we say, well, maybe you want to debate whether you're going to file a claim or not. These are catastrophes. They're assigned what we call CAT numbers in the insurance world, which are treated very differently. And you want to start the process as soon as possible, because there are
as soon as possible. Amen to that. Yeah.
You don't know. I mean, if you want to get an Airbnb approved for where you're going to stay, and you want to pick where you're going to stay for the next year and rent a long-term home to put your family up while your home is being rebuilt, or you figure out where you're going to live, a lot of those opportunities that are local might disappear. And starting that process sooner than later with your insurance company might mean that you get the home that you want or the circumstances you want, because otherwise you're going to start to having to maybe stay further away, commute further, where your kid's going to go to school if their school's still available, but now you're going to have to commute 45 minutes because housing dried up and nothing fit your needs. So we want to start looking at that and trying to get those things in place. And your insurance agents and the insurance adjusters are there to help you. If your adjuster isn't getting back to you, call your insurance agent. That's why you picked an agent and didn't buy insurance online. You wanted that extra support. If you did buy it online and you don't have that relationship, call someone like me.
Right.
Most of us want to try and help you right now. We're not looking from the business opportunities right now. I told my entire staff that I don't care whether you're in the sales department or you're in the service department. While we're going through this, the sales department is the last thing we need to focus on. What we need to focus on is everybody in this office needs to be able to answer the phone, talk to people, hold their hand, listen to their stories. If they want to cry to you, let them cry to you. If they want to yell at you, let them yell at you. And let's just help them and hold their hands through what's a difficult time, because this could have just as easily been any one of us. And having been through 100%. The Northridge earthquake and had to be displaced for a period of time after that, I can tell you, I remember the restaurants that didn't even make us pay for bills, that were just like, you guys, like we heard you talk, and we weren't like trying to tell everybody, hey, we're here, we lost our home in an earthquake, or we were really damaged in this. They just heard us talking at our table quietly among ourselves.
Right.
Did that. But right now there's a lot of smoke in Los Angeles, and maybe this is the time to take your kids, to San Diego or to Santa Barbara, or on a little weekend trip away from the Los Angeles area, to give yourself a little freedom and a little, I don't know, adventure, when there's nothing more you can do here in this circumstance.
Right. Absolutely. Maybe get on up to Vegas or Idaho, one of these directions too, and just get a little breath of fresh air, maybe a little bit,
I think, gentlemen, the word that comes to mind listening to Zach just now, and it's a very good point you make, Zach, for all of our teams. The word is empathy. Just Absolutely. Really trying to understand what people are going through. And it's not sympathy, it's empathy. Understanding what people are going through, feeling what people are going through, and just trying to be there for them in whatever way you can.
It's
absolutely 100%, Dave. Absolutely. I agree. I think all of us are that kind of people. So if anybody needs to talk, holler, scream, share some feelings, we're here. We're here to help out. Just give us a call. Any three of us. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, I wanted to ask everyone's opinion on this, because this is, with the news and everybody's watching what's going on in the media, and, maybe half of it's true or real, and the other half is totally twisted one direction or the other. Not getting political or anything like that. But listen, what are your thoughts about why are we in this debacle right now, in your opinions? What do you think it is?
That could be
I can tell you what I think it is.
Let's hear yours. It's a loaded question, and I think we're all probably going to come to the same place. But I have my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours.
All right. My thoughts are, I'm hearing things like fire hydrants in the Pacific Palisades that had no water or not operating correctly.
Yeah, I heard it was pressure. Is what I heard, is they didn't have the right
pressure situation. Yeah. Brush abatement all through the area that's been called out for a long time, was not tackled, was not handled, was not done. And I think years ago, I heard there was a lot of pressure on that being done. Just a complete mismanagement of what's being done with water, the reservoir being empty. Not quite sure why that. So between the empty reservoir, the fire hydrant's not working right. I hear hoses were dry, the weed and brush abatement not being handled. I don't know. I mean, there's such a negligence there, and why? Why is the $1 million question? And that opens a whole can of worms, I know, and it could be very interesting. But I just wonder what your thoughts were on that, or if you guys have heard anything different or that could be added to that.
Well, let me offer you this, because Zach's is probably going to be the most valuable of the three of us. So let's save his for last. I'll just say, from a really broad perspective, I think there's a number of different circumstances that play into this. I think it's definitely not just one or two. There's a number of different things. And my hope in looking forward to the future is that there's a lot of research and development done around what it is that put us in this position, so that, more importantly than laying blame for what happened, we figure out how we make sure that doesn't happen again. That's sort of my view on this, without really a whole lot of technical or skillful knowledge on what it is that has put us in this place. That's kind of where I'm at now from my perspective, is, hey, there's probably a combination of factors. My hope is that as a city, as a county, as a government, as a state, we figure out where we went wrong so that we don't end up in this place again. But that said, I'll turn it over to Zach and get the most the most skillful opinion of the three of us, I would say.
I don't know. I mean,
Well,
this
thanks,
is probably
Dave.
all conjecture because I'm just an insurance agent who understands insurance. But I think, being in insurance, we do hear a lot of things about what's going on in the environment we work in and the communities that we service. And, I think this was a perfect storm. And so when you talk about how this specific, I mean, we've got, I don't know, 8 fires burning around us right now, but there were 3 big ones, and these other ones kept popping up. And typically I've always noticed that when you have fires that start and we start having like the massive fires that are actual, like sparked by, I don't know, dry lightning, the windstorms do things, and that happens. But what happens is as those sustain themselves and we have these circumstances where more have popped up, that's when the firebugs seem to come out. And that's the arson stories that we're hearing, where all of a sudden we're hearing about so many more fires. And not all of these are just the environment around us being the environment. We do have to remember we're in a high risk wildfire area to begin with in Southern California. And that's something we can't forget. But so when you put that to the test, though, we definitely had, a generational windstorm that came through here on what is it, Monday night and Tuesday, and has continued, and it's subsiding right now. But the rumor is there's more coming back next week. I don't think that we're going to see these fires necessarily extinguished, in the next couple of days. So seeing where all these things go, but then you start to say, okay, if we just had if we know that we're in a community that has wildfire issues, and then insurance companies have been reluctant to write insurance and stay involved because of those elements, and that's exacerbating the issue. And then we get into let's carry these things step by step, and we go, okay, we happen to have a very dry summer. We're at the end. The summer has now ended. So normally like March, April, May, June, we lived through this amazing summer after the spring, and we have these rains and the hills are all green, and then they go brown after the end of the summer. And that's why a lot of times we notice our fire season tends to be the end of the summer and the beginning of the winter or the fall, right? And if we know that we're in that kind of area and we're in that, this is something that constantly happens. I don't know if we can say, how are we going to avoid future wildfires? How do we minimize the impact of these wildfires? And that comes from utilizing those resources properly, having a fire department and embracing our fire department. I mean, I live in an area where we have a phenomenal fire department. And by the way, we have a phenomenal fire department in Los Angeles too. Those firefighters and those police officers, these guys are doing amazing work. But when I hear news stories and hear that we cut $16-18 million out of a budget or whatever the amount was that was cut out of our fire department budget, I want to know, where did that money go? What did we need money more for that was so much more important? And where did our tax dollars need to be spent? Because we do pay some of the highest tax dollars in the country to live in Southern California or in California. And instead, we had to cut the budget of our protective services to do what?
That's absolutely
what was more important, and who made those decisions, and who is making these decisions going forward? And if we
whoever made those decisions is probably regretting it now.
They might be. I hope they're regretting it, and I hope they decide that they want to do something different going forward. But the problem is, we keep cycling the same people, and we're not bringing fresh thoughts and people who say, "Hey, we need to focus on prioritization," right? And why are we not prioritizing safety?
Correct. I agree with that, Zach, all day long. And I agree with you too, Dave. We don't need to get into this big blame game situation and worry about, we're just going to blame. Who do we blame? Who do we blame? Who's at fault, right? And throw them under the bus. But all that aside, there has to be accountability. And there's been a big lack of that, in my opinion, from what I've seen. And people have got to be held accountable. I know in my business, I'm held accountable. I know you are in your business, Dave, and Zach, you as well. All three of us, we're under the gun all the time. We not only need to perform for our clients and keep everything legal and legitimate and have our clients' best interests at heart all the time, more than our own, right? This is how it is in our industry. And it has to be that way for those voted officials that are supposed to have our back and protect us. And if they're not, they need to be held accountable.
Well,
that's just my honest opinion.
I'll share something that you both are probably aware of, which is factual. This is not opinion. This is factual, and it's not something that jumped out as a surprise within the last week. Typically, by this time of year, typical rainfall is 3.5 to 4 inches. We're not even at a quarter inch right now. That is not something that jumped out as a surprise. So I'm sure it was quite widely known that our water levels were, well, do the math, 3.5 to 4 inches versus a quarter inch. So when you talk about water shortages, when you talk about a lack of water pressure, I'm not a specialist in this department, but I can tell you it shouldn't be any surprise to anybody that our water levels were substantially, like maybe 10% of 15% of what they should have been. So I certainly understand what you're saying there. And again, when it all comes to shove, yes, there should be accountability. But the most important piece for us moving forward is how do we learn from this? And there are certain things like rainfall. You can't change that. It is what it is, and we live in a desert.
You can understand that if we live in a climate and that tends to run dry, and we
Correct.
know that
we live in a desert.
Yeah. I mean, we live in the desert. We built in the desert, and remember that we've built more and more and more into the hillsides. We're not any longer just in the valleys and in the areas that
Correct.
are concrete jungles. We are surrounded. If you go into Santa Clarita, these communities are built into canyons, and around those canyons are a lot of wildlife, all these kinds of things. And if we don't start to plan, and we don't have our elected officials focused on investigating what can we do to minimize this risk, to be prepared, and to have the emergency resources and support our first responders enough so that when this happens, they have the tools at their disposal.
Absolutely.
Maybe that means we need more super soakers and more helicopters that can drop water and act quickly. But then again, hey, when we have a perfect storm of these weather events where the winds are that difficult,
low water, high brush.
We need more manpower or woman power. But whatever we need, how are we going to handle these circumstances? And to think that we've been through this so many times before.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we haven't come with a conclusion. And the last decision that I know of that was made was to cut the budget of the fire department in the Los Angeles community.
Wow.
I would like to know what caused that. What was the decision, and what was the thought process that led to that decision?
And where was that money allocated?
Forgive my ignorance, but was this just for LA County, or was this for all of California?
That was my understanding. That was in LA City.
That's my understanding as well.
It was LA City.
Right.
And
then where was that money allocated?
LAFD's department was cut.
Right.
I believe that's what the Los Angeles Times published as an article about it. And I think now people are going to have those questions. And I hope that we get honest answers. And I hope we look for how to maybe look at our budget and look at what we spend our investments on, and how we're as a state spending taxpayer dollars, and are they being put to the best use and the most necessary use, or are they fulfilling desires? When I think about what my family needs, I feed them and I clothe them and I house them before we go to the movies and we go to concerts and we go on trips. And I want to know if our tax dollars are being spent on the necessities first versus the desires.
Absolutely. Well said.
At this particular juncture, we really don't know where that money was reallocated.
No, we don't.
No. I have my thoughts, but that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother discussion.
We have another podcast for that.
That's another podcast. Yes. Absolutely.
I don't know what costs are going to do, because like a lot of companies were already working on getting their rates to something that was more sustainable. So this may have an impact or may keep certain carriers out, but it might not be as disastrous as we as hope. But this, when everybody says, why are rates so much? I don't understand why my rates have changed so much. Guys, this is exactly why your rates have changed. This is exactly the stuff that the insurance companies knew would come one day and needed to prepare for and needed to collect enough money to be solvent when they did.
So you're saying that what's happening now is partially already priced in?
Partially, but I don't think that this bad in this.
Okay, I thought what we're seeing now is what already happened, and there's more to come. But it's enlightening to know that a certain portion, if any, of what's happening now has already been priced in, because it would hopefully mean that maybe the bump isn't going to be as bad as we think. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, remember that one of the things that insurance companies have been, two of the things that insurance companies have been asking for change on a regulatory side of their industry was being able to pass through reinsurance rates, which is the insurance that insurance companies carries.
Right. Reinsurance, right.
So that they don't suffer the entire loss.
Right.
So that's happening now. So
like General, right? General is a reinsurance company.
Yeah. So we're going to start to see reinsurance costs passed through to homeowners. That's going to be an adjustment. The other thing that we're going to see is that predictive models are going to be able to be used. And that's part of what was going on, is that they said we can't just use the past when we're talking about climate change and we're concerned that climate change is going to impact things.
You mean predictive models about future devastation?
Yeah, there's predictive models where they say, hey, this is where things are going, because trends, that's why trends, are predictive of the future.
Oh,
right?
You mean because they're cyclical?
They're cyclical, but not only that, when you start seeing, costs rising at 1%, or you're seeing, temperature rise, you start to say that we're going to have drier climate. How often is this going to happen? Are we going to have more weather related events? And these are the kind of things that just start that at some point insurance companies, if they're going to plan, we need to know that we need the money to pay tomorrow's claims with today's money. We have to start knowing that we're buying risk for tomorrow, right? We're not buying risk for yesterday. We don't pay for insurance in arrears. We pay for the future.
Well, even the cost of construction, because like way back in 2001, when I bought a home that I'm guessing that place must be worth about 2.5 or 2.6 now. $200 a square foot, $200 to $250 a square foot was a really nice home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, like a really fucking nice home.
Yeah, but you're not building
and
that.
Now $250 a square foot is like Motel 6.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore. Yeah. So how much do those things need to change, and how much are even?
Because that's got to be affecting the insurance premiums, because it's the cost to rebuild the house.
Well, yeah. So you have the cost to rebuild the house, but then how fast you use the first? I mean, how fast are you using the first $100,000? So it's not just, hey, we need more coverage. The first dollars are always the most expensive. The last dollars are the least, right? But if now we know that we're going to use this much, that much faster, we have to price knowing that, just like how on auto insurance, we now know that a fender bender, now that we have all these cameras and sensors, now is that much more expensive.
Dude, your actuaries must be doing like triple overtime right now.
I mean, they've been doing this for years, and this is a
or maybe they have computer models that do it now.
I mean, they do, but actuaries have to write the codes and put the data in and think about it, and you have to come up with a program of thinking, okay, what are the analytics we're looking for? And then some of the things they look for is they look for trends like, well, homes in this zip code, or properties that have building ages over a certain age. They look for the trends on the claims and what it takes, and those are impacts that have to be factored into that. I would love to stay and chat all night. I would do this. I have to go.
Well, I tell you guys, I mean, we could talk for hours and hours about this, and maybe we should hop on another podcast real soon, and we could continue on with what develops here real soon. But the most important thing is that, Zach, I appreciate you coming on tonight and taking a little time out of your super busy slam schedule just to share some insight with our listeners out there. And Dave, of course, we always love having you on board too to share your insights. And please remember out there, anyone listening, that we're an incredible source of information and help for anybody out there. Just reach out, and we're here to help any way that we possibly can. Our hearts go out to everybody in SoCal. We're here to help, please. And there are a lot of people helping. I know, like I was saying, in Vegas and in Idaho, they were sending the fire trucks down and emergency teams. I mean, this is our neighboring states are helping out. Everybody's doing their part. So I hope that everybody hangs in there, and this will come to resolve. But like Zach was saying too, that hopefully we don't gloss over this. And in my opinion too, what I'm saying is let's hold somebody accountable. Let's get this figured out so this doesn't happen again. And yes, it's a perfect storm, but I agree with Zach that we could do things to mitigate a lot of these things and lighten the load if it ever happens again, because it very well can happen again because we are in the desert.
Well, it will.
Right? So
I would argue that it almost assuredly will happen again. The question is just going to be, how prepared will we be the next time?
Right. Absolutely.
I do want to thank you, Cash, for dedicating this podcast to the devastation that we've experienced in the last several days here. And of course, I've known and worked with Zach and referred many clients to him over the years. And I want to thank, for both Cash and myself, Zach, thank you very much for taking the time to share your experience and your expertise. Couldn't be more valuable at this particular juncture.
Absolutely agreed, 100%, Dave. And thank you to our producer, Amy, who's doing an amazing job on keeping our videos and everything together. Thank you so much for that. And again, reach out to us if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, need anything here between Zach, Dave, and myself. And until then, till our next video, everybody be safe.